Hi, my name is Joseph Alai. Welcome to my channel. And today I want to talk about imaginal acts and constructing an imaginal scene so that you can manifest your desire in a tested, specific, predictable way. There are many ways to go about constructing an imaginal scene. And recently, through my clients and customers, there have been a lot of questions related to the style by which you can construct an imaginal scene, or essentially how do you construct one that allows for the most fast or quickest unfolding of a manifestation. So before we get into this, definitely hit the like button. It does something to the algorithm so that those who wouldn't normally be able to see this video will be able to see it. Hit the subscribe button if you want systematic, broken down methods on how to manifest whatever you want in a predictable way, and hit the bell icon to stay tuned for the content to come, which will be quite a bit. And also stay tuned for upcoming videos to hear about my recent manifestations and relocations, my manifestation of my house, a relationship. So I think you will really like that. So imaginal acts. Oftentimes when we think about manifestation, the term imagination comes to mind. And if you are a follower of Neville Goddard, who is my inspiration with a lot of my content, you will hear his term, imagination creates reality. This is a common term used by any manifestation practitioner, any manifestation teacher, which gives the idea that whatever you want, as long as you can construct a scene implying its fulfilled desire, then you can manifest that thing. Now, there are very specific ways to do this. The key here is to impress your subconscious mind. Now, what does this all have to do with creating your reality? So, manifestation is the pushing out into reality, into physical reality, the contents of your imagination. And it does so in a way that is magical, so to speak, a way that is independent of you, a way that is perfectly orchestrated by the God within you. Now, each and every one of us, our awareness is the God of Scripture, often misconfused or misconceived with other ideas related to your mind is God, or your body is God, or whatever it is. The whole concept of manifestation is that your awareness of consciousness, your awareness of being is God. It's the God of Scripture. In Exodus 3, there is a cipher that is used and should be used to define the rest of Scripture, and it says God's name is I am. And that word I am is the same word for awareness or consciousness. So that's important because there's a topic or aspect of manifestation that also is by Neville Goddard, that is everyone is you pushed out. But again, most people are confused by this and think it means everyone is your mind pushed out. But really it means everyone is yourself pushed out, which is the self of man, which is God, which is your consciousness. So the mind is the centralized, individualized consciousness in the brain. But awareness itself there's one awareness, and that awareness is aware of each and every one of our minds. So in other words, we are aware of our mind. So that awareness itself illuminates our mind. And so whatever it illuminates, it creates. So that is essentially the process of manifestation. It's bringing something forth within your mind, allowing your consciousness to take a snapshot of it. That gets impressed into the subconscious mind and then manifests into time-space. And it does so in a way that is independent of our understanding, and in most cases, independent of our consciousness altogether. We are actively right now unfolding so many bridge of incidents in our lives, so many intersecting and intertwining bridge of incidents. There is no way that we could be aware of them all. So when talking about manifesting our desire, there are very specific ways to do this. There are wrong ways, there are right ways. There is mainstream law of attraction practitioners that talk about imagining something like looking at yourself like you're on a movie screen, right? And then there are people who say focus only on feeling. There are so many variations of teachings, but the truth is that we have to imagine in first person perspective. The reason for this is that our consciousness will replicate the contents of our mind. And when it does this, it will push it out on the screen of space in the exact likeness that we have imagined it. So if we're imagining something like it's on a movie screen, meaning observing ourself in third person point of view, receiving this goal, or marrying the person we love, or with a bunch of money, or receiving an award, or whatever the case is, the fact that your consciousness, and this is a law of consciousness, it replicates the contents of your mind. It replicates what is impressed upon it. So if you are impressing something from the point of view or perspective of someone else, meaning third person perspective, receiving it, then when it manifests into time space, because it's replicated, someone else will receive it. Even though you're assuming or intending that it's you, your subconscious or awareness does not care about what you intend or assume. It is only replicating what you hand it over. So that is why first person perspective is absolutely essential. First person perspective means looking through your own eyes. That means as opposed to observing yourself, and this is the natural way of imagining, by the way, which is why people ask me all the time, if this is as simple as imagining the end, why doesn't everyone win the lottery? Why doesn't everyone do this or that? And it's because people automatically visualize in third person perspective. That's just the way that our minds work. We, as a selfish person, need to see ourself receiving that thing. So the key and trick and specific technique that I have personally systematically tested thousands of times, and not only myself, but my clients as well, and clients or viewers will post in the comments below, which I please do if you are watching this, is that in first person perspective, you will manifest something from the perspective of yourself. And therefore, when it's replicated, you will receive it. Meaning, if you're looking through your own eyes, receiving something with your own hands, then when it manifests into time space, you will be looking through your own eyes and receiving it with your own hands. So that is the absolutely important, primary, vital, crucial aspect of manifestation that you have to remember always. And this is not something that is inherent. We have to practice this. Oftentimes people say, it's difficult for me to do so. Well, it was difficult for me to do so as well. It took me days and weeks and months and even years to master this. Now, when I imagine, there is no third person. I automatically imagine in first person perspective. It's just practicing. You practice. And even when you visualize and your mind will wander or go third person perspective or whatever. You just have to bring it back. Practice over and over and over again. So also, aside from that, the other crucial, important aspect of constructing a scene to manifest your desire is to imagine something after the end. So I talked about the law of consciousness, which is that your consciousness, in a mystical, magical way, will replicate the contents that it's aware of. And that means that if you imagine before the end, you will construct a seed that you cannot see. It will be conditioned into the image of the thing that you've imagined, which means when it's replicated, it will manifest in the exact likeness of what you've imagined. So if it is before the time and space that you have received the end result, you will manifest something before the time and space where you would have received the results, and no further. Myself, many clients, many viewers, by the thousands have come to me and said, Joseph, why is it that I keep manifesting almost there? And almost always, invariably, it's because they've imagined before the end. See, seeds, imaginal seeds, which are constructed, again, by the mind, you visualize something, the consciousness is aware of what your mind is seeing, your imagination. It constructs a seed with the DNA in the exact image of what you've imagined. So that means when it grows, just the same as an apple tree will grow into an apple tree, a human baby will grow into a human baby. It doesn't go beyond that. It won't go to something else. That is literally and exactly how our consciousness works. So you have to realize that when you imagine something, you're not going to, like, just as you can't plant one seed here of a tree and the other seed here of a different tree, they're not going to merge together and create some tree. That is exactly what happens, meaning they're independent, individualized, respective to the scene that you've imagined. You construct an individualized scene that represents you having your fulfilled desire. Go after the end, because if you don't, when the seed goes to its fulfillment, it stops at the point and is never guaranteed to go beyond it. In most cases, never does go beyond the image that you've imagined. Doesn't matter if after you say, oh, well, let me go further. Doesn't work like that. They're not connected to each other. I have seen this in my own life countless times. There are nowadays, interesting. So as you can see, I'm in a new place. I'm in England, and I was just having this conversation with my girlfriend recently about the practice of imagining. And we talk about this stuff all the time. We talk about, other YouTubers, other TikTokers. It seems like anyone now who's ever manifested something thinks that they have the right to create a channel or create something and then coach people. And it is tragic, because I have seen in my own personal experience with people coming to me saying, this person has coached me into oblivion, or my girlfriend as well. They come to her and say, this person told me this thing. You have to be careful of what you are watching. I have seen and heard so many people say, yes, imagine this thing, then the next thing, then the next thing. The problem is that there's no guarantee that it will go beyond that. Imagine the end. Technically it's imagine after the end. Find a time related to your end desire that is after it, never before. And when it replicates, it will be guaranteed to grow to that point, and at least that point. That's what you want to do. So all in all, we're talking about first person perspective and imagine the end. Once you have those two components, those are the two keys that you can use to any technique, whether that means you're imagining using a visualization or inner conversations or whatever, always from the perspective of yourself, either hearing or seeing or touching, whatever the case is. Imagine from first person perspective after the end. Now, when it comes to the question of what do we place in the scene itself, there are some guidelines. And this is when it comes to the questions that I've received recently. So I've started constructing custom imaginal scenes for people, and I've gotten a lot of questions related to, why am I giving people scenes that contain certain criteria when in other videos I've talked about said criteria? So myself, what you realize is when you construct an imaginal scene to the degree of complexity that you impress upon the subconscious, to that same degree will there likely be complexity in reality. So if you add 10 different things to one imaginal scene, all of those things, because it's a replicating factor, it has a replicating faculty within it, consciousness, when it creates, all of those things must be experienced at the same time. And with that said, everything must happen in a natural way. And because of that, you will often have much complexity, meaning there will be crazy experiences have to happen. And not only that, all of them have to happen at the same time, because they must be experienced at the same time. So when we talk about constructing a scene, oftentimes simplicity is best. Split up your desires to independent, individualized scenes respective to the desire itself. Imagine them separately, and then what will happen is they're no longer interdependent upon each other. They will happen in their own appointed hour each. That means not all 5 big desires that you want, marriage, children, a big house, being a millionaire, something else, they will all not have to happen at the same time, or not at all. That's the problem that you find that the amateurs talk about. They don't understand that that's the case in other channels and stuff like this. But again, this is something tested systematically thousands of times. I have seen it, done segmented tests. And not only that, again, my clients and my viewers who have been with me since the beginning, please comment below to tell people that this is the truth. Explain to them maybe some of the problems that you faced when you have imagined multiple things at once. A lot of times it takes years for these things to unfold. So with that said, constructing a scene oftentimes that is simple to remember so that you don't have to reflect upon it while you're imagining. Remove all the extra detail that doesn't matter. Imagine after the end in first person point of view and a single desire in and of itself. Imagine that scene to the best of your ability. It's not about quantity here, it's about quality. If you have 5 scenes, the goal isn't to imagine them all in one sitting, in one night. Imagine one at a time until you feel you've done the best. You want this scene to be as if it's a memory. That means thinking from that scene, not of the scene, meaning have your thoughts aligning with yourself if you really were there. Add all the tones of reality, strip out all the extra detail that doesn't matter, and your scene can be very short, easily memorable. It could be 3 seconds, 5 seconds long, something that you can just repeat over and over and over. When you do this, there's less effort required. You're not going to have to remember. Your mind's not going to wander as much. You're not going to have to delve into your memories to think of how you mapped out this scene beforehand, which is a huge problem that people, when they contact me or my coaching clients, they often talk about this. They say, well, when I go to imagine, I have trouble. You should at least, I recommend, at least for the best results for things that are most crucial, most important, just map it out. If you really care about these things, then why not take a few minutes, map it out? The problem with not mapping it out is once you get into a state that is conducive to impressing the subconscious mind, if you are delving back into the realm of your memories, then you snap out of that state that allows the impression. You go back into the perspective of analytic thinking, and you get yourself out of that state, and then you have to go back again to get back into a state that allows for impression. Therefore, map it out and memorize it. This is why short, concise scenes that strip out extra detail that doesn't matter, and that's after the end, first person perspective, and reiterable, repeating over and over, so effective to do this. Now, we're talking at this point, so that's what I would do. If you have a goal, something that is, it could be anything. Oftentimes, it's extremely helpful to construct these short, concise scenes. How effective is how important. So practice this over and over. Train your mind to go back into first person perspective. Imagine only the end. Make individualized, respective to the desire, imaginal acts, and repeat it over and over until you feel saturated, until you feel a thrill or a satisfaction that you have done a good job. Generally speaking, when I know that I've impressed something in my subconscious is when I can perceive that imaginal act as if it's a memory. There's no more struggle, right? The same as when you learn how to ride a bike or drive a car. In the beginning, you have to think about every little thing that you do, right? Shifting into gear or pressing the brake or hitting the blinker, looking left and right, stopping at the sign. All of these things require extreme concentration for the first few minutes. However, within minutes or within the first driving session, generally speaking, it becomes automatic. You're no longer thinking about it. This is literally, actually the process of making something conscious to subconscious. And in that same likeness, the same system can be utilized in impressing the subconscious with your imaginal act. When you sit down and close your eyes or whatever it is that you're doing, when you repeat the scene over and over, at first your mind is going to wander. At first you're going to struggle. At first you're going to have to remember everything. At first you're going to have to populate the scene. At first you're going to have to relax. But once you're there and you begin to imagine, yes, your mind's going to wander. You're going to have to bring it back. But as you repeat it over and over in the short, concise, condensed scene after the end, the simpler it is, the easier it is, the less problems you'll have memorizing it or reiterating it over and over, the faster you can impress it into the subconscious mind. So that is an effective imaginal act. Now, when we're talking about the custom imaginal scenes that I've been providing, which is essentially the same deal, I use the same systematic strategies that I've developed over, more than a decade of doing tests. What I've been doing is, as opposed to constructing a 3 to 5 second imaginal act and selling it to people, which can be effective just the same, what I've been doing, and also another difference. So what I do with this, obviously, is 3 to 5 seconds, 3 to 10 seconds, 15 seconds, whatever it is to remember and easily impress the subconscious. But when I'm talking about the custom imaginal acts that I've been creating, they're usually 3 to 4 minutes long. which again is a huge contrast between the system that I've just taken you through. But the difference also is that I'm not repeating it to you in first person perspective. I am commanding you to believe. I am commanding your subconscious to experience this thing. The thing is, if you've purchased an imaginal scene from me, then you already have a trust in me. You will automatically yield to the things that I have said. If you've been watching me all along, then you know the stuff that I have talked about works 100% of the time. You've probably looked at the comments. You have probably joined my groups. You've probably done one-on-one coaching with me or whatever. You've probably paid for workshops. You have a lot of trust in me. So when I tell you, people sometimes do one-on-one coaching with me just to hear me tell them that something is possible, and then boom, they manifest it just like that. So you will hear my voice and you automatically you snap into a mode of receptivity, and your subconscious becomes much more easily impressionable, which is the necessity to manifestation. So once you hear my voice, what I do at that point is construct a guided meditation of sorts, still after the end. And by the end, I command you to experience that which you desire to achieve. So oftentimes what happens is you submit the form, which is, Joseph, I want this thing or that thing. I want this specific person. I want this amount of money. I take that and I construct a deliberate scene, which is the whole point of it is to grab onto and control every aspect of your senses to seize your mind or prevent your mind from observing anything outside. You can no longer think freely. I now have complete control of the mind, and I direct it in a way to get your subconscious mind to yield, or your mind yields to allow your subconscious to get impressed. That is the way that I am utilizing this. But you'll notice if you've received the Imaginal Acts, I do give you a version where it's in first person perspective, where if you want to read this script, it's kind of like journaling from the future, which is another technique that I talk about, where essentially you just pretend that you're writing from the perspective of having something. And that's all that you need to do. Again, after the end, first person perspective, dear God, thank you so much that I've, married this person. Dear God, thank you so much that whatever the case is, it's from the end, it is first person perspective. And so it's essentially taking something like that on a guided meditation. I constructed an imaginal scene that forces and compels your conscious mind to yield to my instruction, and you will get impressed. There have already been many positive testimonials, many of which I will try to get on here. We'll try to get these so that you can see these results. Even for myself, when I'm constructing these imaginal scenes, these custom imaginal scenes, they are from the end, from first person perspective, always in the direct, exact way that I myself would be imagining if I was going through this process. And what's happening is I am manifesting the same things that I am constructing the scene for you. Meaning, you send me the desire, you're like, I want money easier. I construct this imaginal scene, I record it for you, and then what's been happening is I've also been manifesting these things. This is the proof that this is working. It works easily. All you have to do is follow along in your mind or read this thing and you will manifest. So this is the difference between, a really nuanced, specific, systematic, impressionable technique of how to construct an imaginal act versus more of a guided meditation approach where I am forcing and compelling your conscious mind to yield to my instruction. It's kind of like a hypnosis technique, so to speak. So this is the difference. Now, which is more effective? Now, if we're talking about a silver bullet, right? Oftentimes I talk about systematic techniques, ones that are guaranteed to work, that are predictable, that you do action A and you get result A. That is how I teach things. I teach things in a way which is time tested over, for me and myself, I've been manifesting for a long time, and I've been systematically testing and keeping track of my manifestations with experiments tested experiments, written experiments for years, for well over a decade. Tens of thousands of these things. And what I do is when I receive the results, I'll do test after test after test after test, find the commonalities between them, find the things that don't add up. And I do this also with techniques and stuff that I've read in all the hundreds of manifestation books and then also the hundreds of lectures and all of these things. I take these techniques, I systematically put them to the test. And this is what I implore you to do as well. Do tests, do segmented tests to prove to yourself what works and what doesn't work. And again, for those of you who have been following me for years, go ahead in the comments, let everyone know that this stuff is legit, that it works exactly as I described, that you click a button and you manifest. It's essentially the way that I give this to you guys. So this works 100% of the time. All you have to do is construct a scene from the end. You then imagine in first person perspective, and imagining doesn't necessarily mean visualizing. Oftentimes people, and I think it's through just what we're taught in the Western world, most of the time, people confuse imagining with visualizing. Yes, that visualizing is an aspect or facet of imagining, but so are all the other imaginal senses, right? Taste, touch, feeling, smell, hearing, whatever else I missed. All of these are modes of imagining. So you can use you can create your own technique. All you have to do is imagine after the end in first person perspective, whatever you do, and you will get the results. So I hope this was helpful with giving you the instructions and differentiation between how to construct an imaginal scene to manifest your desires. Now remember, this works for anybody. There is not one person who has more power than anyone else. I have talked to people who have had zero experience, people who have had filled with doubt, people who have not gotten anything, and also people who have been masters at their craft. These techniques work for one and the same for anybody. It will work with you. It doesn't matter how big the desire is, how small the desire is, how stupid, how impossible it is, right? This is impossibility made possible. That is what manifestation is. It is tapping into the ether of all the possibilities, selecting that reality with the imagination. The imagination acts as a glass looking into infinite dimensions, selects the thing that you want to experience. That's what the imagination does. And by holding it and projecting it in front of your consciousness shines through, kind of like how something transparent, when you put it over and you put light, it'll shine through and refract out into time space. That is what happens when you make an impression with your imagination on your consciousness. It refracts through time space and manifests for you to experience it. So absolutely stay tuned for more. There's a worksheet with this. Download the worksheet on constructing imaginal scenes. There are some links in the description as well. Get that worksheet. It'll help you plan and map things out. If you want to get more information, definitely hit the like button. It does something to the algorithm. Those who would not normally be able to see this will be able to see this. Hit the subscribe button and stay tuned. I have relocated to the UK. Stay tuned for my and my girlfriend's collaboration video. She's also someone who is in the manifestation community. She is a manifestation teacher. So we will be going on how we manifested each other. Absolutely mind-boggling, mind-blowing stuff. Stay tuned for that. Hit the bell icon just so that you can actually get notified. Like I said, links in the description, and I will talk to you next time. Thank you.